Newsreel. Real news, real quick. Former President Donald Trump harshly criticized federal judge Beryl Howell's ruling last week that Trump's attorney Evan Corcoran must testify before a federal grand jury in Washington, D.C. over Trump's handling of classified documents. Trump said, quote, "Prosecutors only attack lawyers when they have no case whatsoever," unquote. The ruling was that Corcoran's legal advice was used to engage in a crime or fraud and is therefore exempt under the attorney-client privilege. But that ruling is now the subject of an emergency appeal before the D.C. Court of Appeals. Russian State Duma Chairman Vyacheslav Volodin said that Britain's decision to supply depleted uranium munitions to Ukraine for use in tactical nuclear weapons could result in, quote, "a war to the last Ukrainian that could become a war to the last European," unquote. On Monday, President Vladimir Putin made a similar statement. Dr. Anthony Fauci laughed off lab leak questions in a PBS documentary which aired on Tuesday night despite growing concerns about his ties to the pandemic's origin. Fauci allowed the camera crew in his $2 million Washington, D.C. home filled with self-portraits, art featuring himself, and cushions with his face on them. Fauci did admit that he had signed off on taxpayer-funded grants for risky research on viruses in China because they, quote, "were experiments that needed to be done," unquote. At least 3 Ukrainian naval drones were involved in an early morning attack on Russian Black Sea Fleet warships stationed at the port of Sevastopol on Wednesday morning, local governor Mikhail Razovov reported. The Russian Navy's assets were not damaged in the raid. The Air Force has admitted to House Armed Services Committee Chairman Mike Rogers and House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer that it released without authority service records of 7 Republican congressional candidates during the 2022 campaign cycle to Due Diligence Group, a Democrat political consulting firm. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously on Tuesday that Miguel Perez, who is deaf and a disabled student who attended public school in Sturgis, Michigan, had a valid legal claim against the public school system for providing him an inadequate education under the Disabilities Education Act. And finally, public screenings of a slasher horror movie, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, were canceled across Hong Kong on Tuesday after censors prohibited showings of the movie as Winnie the Pooh has become a symbol of Chinese President Xi Jinping among political protesters. And that's the way the world is. See you next time.